In what unusual way have you almost died? In 2009, when I was only 4 years old, I was infected with the influenza H1N1 during the epidemic. I almost died. The flu appeared in May of that year. In June the vaccine was created, one day after the WHO decreed the pandemic. My mom doesn't like to talk about it, but my aunts told me that I was in my last moments until the vaccine appeared and saved my life. They always cry when they remember this chaos. Crazy to think I went through this twice, but with COVID at the second time. Fortunately I did not suffer major consequences during my second pandemic experience. I got a cellulitis infection on my ear that was incredibly resistant to antibiotics. It spread all the way down my neck, half my face was covered with it and my entire ear was basically one big infection. Had to be hospitalized for a week on strong 4 antibiotics that blew out the veins in both my arms, so I had to get a pickle into my heart. Almost died on day 1, but made a slow recovery that took months to heal from. All because I cleaned my gauges with rubbing alcohol and they got so dry the skin cracked. So yeah, don't do that, lol, you could die. Maybe my own fault, but one of those strapped down pool floating slides. The thing was shaped like a dragon, probably 15 feet long and 9-ish feet wide. I saw the older kids with obviously better swimming abilities than my 8-year-old self, swim under it, and come back up. You can probably see where this is going. I get lost and try to surface with a coffin of polyurethane weighing a few hundred pounds on top of my head. I scraped my way out, but I'll be damned if it wasn't the scariest 5 seconds, which felt like an hour trying not to drown. I was in a sailboat that was on a trailer coming out of the water. One of those driving onto the trailer to get it out of the water to store for winter dealies. I was warning the men who were helping us that the mast was about to hit a tree. I yelled for a good 10-15 seconds, but they were too busy ignoring me to tell the driver. The mast buckled, hit the boom, and rolled to the opposite side of the boat from me. Why didn't I jump ship? I didn't believe they couldn't hear me. I thought they would react. And I was 18 feet up. I was sitting in a chair on my deck on my 35th birthday just a few weeks ago. Hanging out around a fire with our neighbors after a cookout. Our deck has a towering, full-growth oak tree overhead. About 30 minutes after sitting down, a 25 branch falls from 60 in the air and lands squarely on my shoulder. Oddly enough, it broke my radial bone near my wrist. Y'all, this tree branch scraped my neck when it hit. That's how close it was to ending me. Luckily a clean break of the radial and that was it. Cast comes off in a week. When I was a kid, my parents took the family to a ski resort. I had zero interest in the trip and had a bad feeling even then. Fast forward, we are on the kiddie hill, and there's this lift escalator system that takes you up on one side and down on the other. My mother rushes me onto the escalator, and I stumble a bit and end up catching my left ski in the escalator, which freaks me out and I ended up getting my right ski stuck in the opposing direction. Let's just say I'm glad I have my legs and pelvis intact still. Dreamed of going through a white portal. Everything was just white and empty on the other side. Went through it because I was curious to explore. Had a feeling that I didn't want to quit this world Earth just yet, a random though out of nowhere as I entered the portal. Then someone felt like a hand grabbed me by the ankle and abruptly pulled me back. I was almost completely through the portal as to make me stay in the current reality. Then I woke up, catching my breath, a little confused. I had 2 wall brackets up and slightly over from the head of my head to keep a longboard on. It was fine with just one board, but then I thought it was okay to put my second board, which was electric and substantially heavier, on 2. I woke one morning screaming from how loud it was when the drywall anchors on the brackets didn't hold anymore and boards fell about 4 feet down, less than a foot from my head. Safe to say I'm not putting anything close to over my head when I sleep again. When I was a baby, I was laying on the floor in my bedroom while my mom put away laundry. I happened to be laying in front of a dresser, and on top of the dresser was one of those big ass TVs from the 90s OOs with a built-in VCR. Anyways, somehow the TV got knocked off of the dresser, and as it was coming towards me I rolled out of the way just in time. This is all according to my mom because obviously I don't remember, but yeah. Be careful where you leave your baby, I guess. Sure, it's still a little close to death. But when I was a kid about 5-6 years old I wasn't very smart. I used to walk up and down the sock like an equilibrist on a tightrope while eating. And at one point, I slipped and hit the sharp corner of the footboard with all my might on the parietal or occipital part of my head. I didn't feel any pain, but I began to bleed profusely, and only my mother noticed it after about 5 minutes. and they took me to surgery. I think I was around the age of 7 or 8 when my mom took us to visit a friend from out of town at a Daisy Inn. Me, my sisters, and my mom's friends' kids were all swimming and I don't remember what happened, but I legit almost drowned. I remember panicking and screaming for my mom, but she said she wouldn't get in cause she was short 4 feet 11 inches and visiting with her friend and not to interrupt next time. I'm NC with her cause of all the abusive things she did to me growing up. Was assisting at a target practice in the military when a trainee misfired and got saved by my Kevlar helmet. The force of impact pushed my head backwards and fell into the ground with so much force that I got a concussion. Next thing I know, the drill instructors are tearing that trainee a new one while I'm looking at a beautiful blue sky hearing shouting far away. Luckily I got hit by a 9mm to the helmet and not a 7.62mm. From our standard combat rifle. So back in like 2018, 2019 I was playing golf with my friends and I was standing near our club shouting at them to come over to me so we could grab our stuff to leave when a golf ball flew right into my mouth and halfway down my throat somehow, and to this day I am not sure how I survived because I wasn't breathing when I got to the hospital and I needed surgery to get it out. Also I do feel like someone is gonna feel like making this up, but I'm not, so yay! Smiley face. I was riding in the passenger seat of my friend's car. I toppled a drink of Coke at the exact same time she hit a small pothole and I hiccuped. The intake of acidic soda into my lungs from the hiccup along with the jostling from the pothole, I nearly drowned on soda. It hurt so bad as I coughed for a solid 2-3 minutes. At the time I kept thinking, this is how I'm going to die. I'm literally drowning in soda. I couldn't breathe right for the next 2 hours. When I was a teenager, my friends and I were roughhousing in the backyard. One of them jumped onto my back, and I ended up falling on my shoulder, which both broke and dislocated my collarbone. Only, it dislocated from the socket above the sternum, not from the shoulder. A dislocation from that side is rare, and dangerous, because it was my right clavicle that broke. According to the doctor who reset it, the bone had been dangerously close to my heart. I grew up in an apartment in a coastal town in India with 7 floors. On the top floor there was the elevator room, beside which was an enclosure that had no walls and a straight drop down. It was normal for me and my friend to go there and sit with our legs hanging 12 years old. On one instant I tripped and my friend caught me as I was hanging and I lived. It was never even a highlight of my life until I read this post and realized how dumb we were. My mom thought I was a poop. She went to the bathroom to poop and her water broke. Was born at home on an American airbase, breech, cord wrapped around my neck, and had inhaled my first poop plus amniotic fluid meconium aspiration. Apparently Dad was chasing the ambulance down the street because they missed the house. Dad had helped birth goats before though, so I was good and I'm still kicking at 38. Happy birthday tomorrow, Dad, I miss you, green heart. I now know it was a panic attack. I was in a really bad stage of my life at that point and I suddenly started feeling pressure in my chest and the feeling of the inevitability of my own death. I was at a mall with my then GF and my only thought was, oh, perishing in a fucking mall will suck. My GF can't drive, she'll be stressed for the car. In retrospect, I guess that my not caring about my own death was exactly what stopped the panic attack. I was 18ish. I was in the passenger seat of my friend's car on the Autobahn in Germany. I had taken MDMA and smoked a lot of weed. We were going about 170 kilometers height, and my dumbass rolled the window down and sat in it with my upper body outside of the car, fell backwards. My friend saw this before it was too late and grabbed me by my shirt, and pulled me back in. He yelled at me a lot that ride back home, lol. Thank you Nike for making sturdy shirts. I had an incident at a large inflatable water trampoline park, where I unintentionally fell off one of the largest trampolines while exhaling into the water. I attempted to resurface, but quickly realized that I was trapped beneath the trampoline. The situation became alarming as I quickly depleted my oxygen supply before even reaching the water's surface. Fortunately, a lifeguard noticed my distress and came to help me. Was hanging laundry on my 5th-story apartment and I tripped up on my bed sheets while I was holding them in front of my face. I slammed back into my balcony's railing and almost folded over the edge. Only thing that stopped me were my ankles digging into the railing so I could do some quasi crunch back up. Never let go of the bedsheet for some reason throughout all of that. Could have used it as a parachute, duh. About 4 months ago I blacked out from blowing my nose too hard. I guess it messed with my inner ear fluid. Woke up on the floor, face was busted open and bleeding. No idea how long I'd been out for, but when I came to the room was spinning, my eyes were shooting back and forth like frickin' lasers and I had no sense of balance. When I came to, I also screamed my ex's name for help according to my then girlfriend. I was around 14. Huffed some paint, I know and I did too much. Just collapsed down. Smashed my head against a mountain and then started to get like an epileptic attack. Stopped breathing. Lucky for me, a friend was close and started CPR. Woke up in his lap, face covered in blood and paint. Took me 2 seconds fall wake up before him. A couple of minutes. And I can't tell you that I never did that again. Got pushed off the dock by a bully and drowned in front of a lifeguard and was yelling at me to stop faking. I was 9 or 10 at the time and I couldn't swim. Town had a population of less than 800, only had 1 lifeguard, and I was at the beach 3-5 days a week because of family, so they knew. Brother ended up pulling me out and resuscitating me himself. Lifeguard pretended she didn't notice. My mom told me when I was a tot, I used to run out of the sandbox or our front yard and I would run out into the road. A stranger had saved me that day and took me back home. Mom was so thankful and told me to not ever go on the road. Lol, next day I didn't learn my lesson, and before I got to the road, my mom came out and grabbed my hand and spanked me all the way into the house. Lamau. I was a firebug as a kid, loved to explode bullets, make homemade fireworks, that kind of stuff. Had a few close calls, but a really dumb one was when I turned on a propane tank, went to light it, one match broke, and by the time I got a second match to light, a large amount of gas had accumulated. I got a fireball to the face, but only burned my eyebrows. I was insanely lucky,